So if you want consistency, you have to drop the idea of consistency. I know that sounds confusing, so bear with me in this video. Failure to understand this is why you are not consistent. Not consistent at the gym. Maybe you start, you stop, you start, you stop. That's why you can't follow through on things. And this is what I did for years. It wasn't until I understood what I'm going to explain in this video that I actually started having consistency in most areas of my life. And the reason that we want consistency, and we all understand this on some level, is that we know that consistency brings results, and that's what we want. We want results. So what is getting in our way of consistency? And it's what I'm going to explain in this video. So understanding this will break that cycle that you've been stuck in for years. The reason we fail at this is simple. We are chasing something which is out of our control and not focusing on the one thing which is in our control. So you may be saying something like, oh, I want to do this consistently for a year, without realizing doing something for a year is an outcome. And it's subtle because outcomes are not in your direct control. You can only ever control the step you are taking, the step you're on now. When you set an outcome which you can't control, you create this pressure which makes every day feel like a test. And then when we miss one day, we think that that outcome is ruined. Do it every day for a year. So then our brain has this conclusion, we've failed. We cannot do it for a year. And this is where most people will quit. You think, therefore, consistency means never miss for a year. But that's not consistency, that's something impossible. That's an impossible streak. A streak is fragile, and life will always find a way to break it. So therefore, once the streak is gone, the outcome is gone. And then the brain will say something like, well, the streak is gone, the outcome is gone, so what's the point? There's no point. We might as well take more days off. We might as well miss more time. And that's how our streak or our momentum or consistency breaks down. And it's subtle. It's not because you couldn't act. It's because that outcome has gone in your mind. The thing that you thought you were working for has gone. So you placed the wrong expectation on yourself. So real consistency isn't about controlling a year, doing it for a year. You can't control the whole year now. You can only control this step, then the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And it's always only ever this step. Which reminds me of the famous quote, you don't need to see the whole ladder, you only need to take the first step. But the truth is, it's only ever the first step. It's never not the first step. Every result you've gained in your life comes from stacking steps. But our brains want the final picture. The brain wants completion. The brain is always jumping ahead. And from chasing this final picture, from jumping ahead, you miss the step you're taking, which technically is all you ever only have, which technically is what you only ever have. You don't have anything else. So therefore, to last for the whole year, paradoxically, you have to drop that promise of lasting for a year. Drop the idea of never missing and replace it with one rule. Take this step and then the next step, whatever that is. If you miss the step today, take the step tomorrow. If you miss a week, take the step after that. All that really matters is not that you fall off, but you actually get back on. That's why, strangely, focusing on streaks will kill your momentum, will kill your consistency. And this is what I'm saying here is so subtle. It's because what happens is the belief is that the outcome is important. Doing it for a year is important, not that you show up quite a lot. And I think we've all done this. We've quit because we've ruined this streak. We've ruined this perfect run that we've had. But if you'd just taken the next step, then you'd still be in the game. You'd still be building that momentum, even though you'd missed maybe 2 days. But because we're trying to create this perfect streak, we convince ourselves, okay, we've failed. So consistency isn't the perfect chain of days in a row. It's the art of returning. It's the art of returning step after step after step. Even if those steps aren't evenly spaced, even if the year looks quite messy, it's about how much you're showing up. So we get lost in this idea of measuring the progress to be the outcome, measuring the progress to be the streak. But the streak is an outcome, and outcomes are on shaky ground. You can't measure it by outcomes. All you can do is measure it by the steps. The steps are the foundation. The steps are solid. The steps are in your control. The most consistent people aren't flawless. They just don't get lost in this outcome game. They get very good at showing up regardless. They keep their eyes on the step they're taking, the step that's in front of them. And that's why they last. Perfection fails because it assumes control over the future. And you don't have control over the future. You only have control over the action you take now. So contemplate on this. Build your mindset around this. Here's the paradox. When you drop the outcome, you become more consistent because there's nothing to break. There's only the next step. You can't hold the whole year in your hands now. It's too big. You can only hold this step now in your hands. That's all you need to focus on. So this will change everything. It stops you from sabotaging. It stops you from overanalyzing when you can't do something because you think that you've lost the outcome. Your brain will then strangely stop panicking about losing this imaginary outcome of doing it for a year. And then you will just focus on doing the thing that's in your control. And that's whatever you can do today or whatever you can do now. When the outcome stops controlling you, you won't then be thrown off when it changes. You will keep moving, and it's keeping moving that will get results. The future is a guess. A year is a guess. What is real is now. The step you're taking is real. That's now. And that's the only thing you can actually do. Stop counting streaks, stop counting returns, focus on what's in your control, and that's the step you are taking. So therefore, it's not about tricking yourself into trying to be perfect. And I'm not saying you're doing this. It's about focusing only on the next step and the step you're taking. And you can always ask that question and that answer will always come back. No matter how messy things get, no matter how much chaos there is, you can just zoom everything down into whatever you need to do to be the next thing you need to do. Now, the brain likes to play a trick, and this is probably why we like to focus on outcomes. It's like, oh, this isn't enough. This one small insignificant step isn't enough. But when you look at what builds results, it's millions of small steps. It isn't just one big step. It's millions of small steps. So it's important to understand this. It's important to understand that the brain is always trying to make something much more grandiose out of this big giant step. But when you really think about it, results come from these tiny actions over and over and over. So to recap, here's the consistency formula. Drop the outcome you can't control. Focus on the step that you can control. Understand and spot the mind's tendency to want to jump to the future and to do these big steps which make you feel like you're making progress. Understand why the mind does that. When you fall off, when you inevitably will fall off, come back to what's in your control. That's the step you're taking. And notice the mind's tendency to say that this isn't enough. It's not significant enough. But it is, because there's nothing else you can do. Notice how liberating this is. Notice how freeing this is to let go completely of making this big grandiose step and just to focus on what's in your control now. Let go of this giant burden that you've put on yourself of doing it for a year. Let go of that, because that's going to be weighing on you. That's what causes you to sabotage. It's very freeing when you realize that you don't have to do it for a year. When you realize that, you come to realize that you've been making this so much harder than it needs to be because you're trying to control all of your future and you don't have any control over that. All you can do is control what you're doing today. Once you understand this, consistency stops being this fight. You stop having this fight with yourself every day. It becomes this natural rhythm. This is where flow state comes from, because you're no longer chasing, you're just stepping. When you see things this way, you'll stop burning out. You'll be a lot more kind to yourself. And that's where consistency comes from. It comes from the self-compassion of knowing what's in your control. I hope that helps. Maybe a bit confusing. Please like, subscribe, comment below. I want to hear your thoughts on this, and see you in the next video.